Right, so 325 grand a week. He's turning 30 in December. He can't do a square pass. We've got to talk about Raheem Sterling. This guy has always been a bit of a decisive character with Liverpool, City, obviously England, and now at Chelsea. So the question really is this criticism fair? And what should Chelsea do next? Let's get into chapter 1. Analysing Raheem Sterling. What I don't want to do, right, is be called a Raheem Sterling hater. So what I'm going to do is use data to have a look at his performances. And what I want to do is sort of have an impartial view on whether this guy has a future at Chelsea Football Club. So the first thing that I looked at was his passing. Think about all of those chances he's had for England. There was that viral clip, wasn't there, of a man asking Raheem Sterling to pass to Reece James, actually, wasn't it, for England, and he holds onto the ball for about 20 seconds, and it's probably about 20 seconds too long in the case of Raheem Sterling. But what I wanted to do was, let's have an objective view on this. So I went through some of the games, and unfortunately I found some pretty bad examples of opportunities that Raheem Sterling has had at Chelsea to basically just pay a square ball, which would have been probably the most easy assist of all time. I'm thinking, obviously Newcastle, that's one that's clear in the memory. Raheem Sterling goes through, he has a one-on-one, he could pass it very easily to Cole Palmer, or he could slot it. I mean, either way, the goal's going in. It's, rosy for Chelsea, but no, he misses that and fluffs his line, and Cole Palmer is left there standing. Then you look at Villa. There's another opportunity just to play a square ball. We see the picture here. Doesn't do it, does he? And then Wolves, there was another one, wasn't there? Actually, that was a 3-on-1, not even a 2-on-1. Could have passed it, could have shot, didn't really do either. And so there's a clear weakness here, isn't there? And it's in Raheem Sterling's finishing. And it's really, really concerning when you think about his experience. As I say at the start of this video, he's nearly 30. He's played a lot of Premier League football, starting at a very, very young age. So yeah, just don't think that's good enough. And then I'm looking at defensive work, right? I really want my wingers to work quite hard in this system, and I think Poch does too. You want him tracking back, supporting, young wing backs. We've had Colwell at wing back is not his best position by any sense. And then you've got Gusto, who, at 19 years old is learning the Premier League, but turns out to be one of our best players. But you also want them supporting the wing backs on either side. You look at what Cole Palmer does. And I'll bring up a graphic here that sort of shows, using the Newcastle game as an example, how far Cole Palmer travels all up and down the pitch. And obviously he's been predominantly played on the right-hand side as a right winger. And you just look at where he is on the pitch. Then you look at Raheem Sterling. Raheem Sterling takes up a left central area, and that's pretty much it. You see it week in, week out in the games. He's not supporting his wing back. He doesn't track back. He doesn't run back. And that's something that is really concerning, when as a team we need all the support we can get from the players. So what I always try and do is be fair to this guy, right? And I've been quite negative on him, but look, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. He's staying high and central because that's what Pochettino is telling him to do potentially. I don't know, but let's just give him the benefit of the doubt. But if he's going to do that, then he has to be involved in the offensive output of the game. But no, he's actually, in fact, third in the overall goals and assist tally, behind Cole Palmer, who we obviously know is going to be top because he's absolutely brilliant, and then Jackson as well. And the thing is, those guys, as I've shown, and you can see on screen, they do get up and down the pitch. Even Nicholas Jackson, who's meant to be the central striker, you want him being the furthest forward by a mile. You don't really necessarily need him getting involved in the play. But Nicholas Jackson does that, and he's scoring more goals and getting more goal contributions. It's a really damning indictment for Sterling, especially when you think about how little he's moving in and around the pitch. But it's not always about goals and assists, is it? It's sometimes about output, about passes. And so what I want to do is also analyse the data there. So let's look at the goals, right? The goals this season have come against Luton, Preston, Burnley. All of those games we've comfortably won. They're not important games, are they? So you've got to think about actual impact in the team. And I just don't think he's having impact in big games. Yes, he scored against City. You've got to give that against him. He was impressive, imperious in that game. Really, really good. But then also, he just goes missing, and he's so inconsistent. And that's what Joey and I have been saying over and over again when we were discussing this guy. We're just saying we're not sure if he can consistently make an impact for Chelsea. And at his level, with his wages, he should. And speaking of wages, and comparing that to the squad, he's third for expected goals and assists per 90 as well as the actual impact itself. He's third for shots per 90, again in both instances behind Jackson and Palmer. And most damningly, he's 5th in terms of key passes per 90. He's behind Mykhailo Mudryk and all of those other boys in terms of the key passes, which is a real damning element of Raheem's play. And we said this in terms of the passing itself about the square balls. He's not doing enough passes to warrant a position in this Chelsea team. He's not involving other players in his sort of build-up play. And this is perhaps one of the biggest criticisms of Raheem Sterling, about whether he does care about the team, whether he's in it for himself. And the data itself seems like he is just in it for himself. He is just caring about his own stats and his own goal record, because he certainly isn't linking up play. So using all of those stats, right, it's not looking good for Raz at all, is it? And I think what we got to consider is what the role for him is going to be for the rest of the season and beyond. For me, I think it's pretty simple. We've got to stick with Raz for the rest of the season, but we've got to use him in a role to tide us over. I think you've got to rotate him. I think you've got to bring him in and out of the team. I don't think he should be a regular starter for us at the moment. But what he should be doing is using his experience and his sort of leadership ability, which he doesn't really seem to have, but quite frankly, at his age and his wage, he should be doing for the team. And so if you ask me what I would do as manager, and Chelsea Football Club do often do this actually, and they are asking me, I probably shouldn't say this actually, the interview process has begun. But yeah, if they were going to ask me, I'd probably phase this guy out slowly. And I'd be looking at the summer now and thinking, how can we offload him? And it's very interesting. Todd Boehly's just been in Saudi Arabia. He's been speaking to a former Chelsea, I would use this word, legend, in Michael Emenalo, a guy that brought some of the best players that Chelsea have ever had to the football club. He is now in charge of the Saudi League's recruitment strategy, about potential options, about potential players. And I very much hope that Raheem Sterling is going to be one of those, because let's beat no bones about this. He was brought in for a crazy amount of money, £55 million. And so if we're going to get anywhere near that, Saudi is the only destination that I think is realistic. But even then, I think, getting £55 million is off the table. We've just got to do a cut price deal, get his wages off the wage bill, and try and recoup as much of that £50 million as we possibly can. It's not going to be easy at all. But look, it's very easy to criticise, isn't it? And I think I've tried where I can to be as fair as I possibly can to Raheem Sterling. I think the data itself shows that he is quite high up in our sort of goal contributions. He is impacting the games, but I just don't think it's at that level where I think he needs to. So the obvious question now is, who will replace him? And, you think about the transfer market. I don't think we need to look at the transfer market. I think we've got a ready-made player that I can't stop talking about, and you guys know that I love him so much. It's Mykhailo Mudryk. So let's get into chapter 2, why I think Mykhailo Mudryk is the answer to replace Raheem Sterling at Chelsea. And because I know you guys all love Mykhailo Mudryk, make sure, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, because quite frankly, I'm going to be talking quite a lot about how much I love this guy, because I just think he's absolutely brilliant. Now, I have to back that up. I think what I've done is systematically destroy Raheem Sterling's Chelsea career through data. And so I'm going to do the same in terms of building up Mykhailo Mudryk using the data. So let's get into it. So as you can see with the stats on screen, Mykhailo Mudryk is better at goals per game. He scores more goals than Raheem Sterling. Raheem has 9 in 20. Misha has 6 in 10. That's more goal involvements. Brilliant. Very good start for Misha. Then key passes per 90. Misha has far more of those, 1.55 to 1.22. It's so key to have players on the wing that can contribute with key passes, because they're the ones that are ultimately creating the best chances for players like Nicholas Jackson, who will inevitably sky over the bar. No, Nicholas Jackson is coming good. We can't slag off that boy anymore. But with the passes that Misha does, he's going to be getting more and more of those opportunities, and therefore more likely to score goals. It's that simple. Misha also has more non-penalty XG, more assists, more successful take-ons, more tackles, and more clearances, and more successful aerial duels as well. Mudryk also has double the defensive actions per game. He also has more successful take-ons, and he has 50 metres more carried than Raheem Sterling in half of the games. crazy amount. And I think if you look at some other stats, he's also very similar. Obviously, Raheem edges him out in these, but they're very, very close. You look at goals, carries, XG per 90, shot creating actions, passes completion as well. They're all so similar. And the key thing that we've got to consider here is Raheem Sterling is 6 years older. He's played way more games than Misha has in his career. In fact, Misha has only played 90 competitive games in his entire senior career. So the fact that these guys are so similar in where they are, you've got to consider the potential growth that someone like Mykhailo Mudryk has. You know, Raheem Sterling is coming into the twilight of his career, but Mykhailo Mudryk is coming into the very start of his career, the very time that he should be so raw, so different. There should be a huge gulf in these players. And when you look at the stats, there isn't really a huge gulf. And for me, just off the eye test, you know, you look at it, let alone the data, Misha is more impactful in both areas, both the attacking areas in terms of the per 90 stats, and then also the defensive zones. You know, Mykhailo Mudryk, we saw it earlier on in terms of the positions on the pitch. Mykhailo Mudryk is everywhere when he plays. You know, he's up and down the pitch, he's defending, he's attacking, and that's just what I love to see. And that's what ultimately Chelsea fans want to see. They just want to see someone that cares. And it seems like Mudryk cares far more than Raz does, and I think that's real shame on Raz's part, especially when he could have been one of those sort of like tentpole players that we build around, and he just hasn't done it. And then do you remember earlier on I was talking about Sterling's goals, and I was looking at Mudryk's goals actually, and I was thinking, do you know what, they're probably similar, they're probably against the bogus teams, and they're not at all. You know, Arsenal, that wonder goal that he did, whether it's a cross or not, who cares? I'm saying it was a shot. And he bagged it in, didn't he? And that was a brilliant move for him. Then Fulham, he also got a really good goal. That was a 2-0 win, but important one to get in. The Newcastle League Cup one. That was an unbelievable goal. You know, bringing it back to 1-1 in the last minute of the game. You know, such an impactful goal. Got us to a cup final, which we arguably should have won. And that would have been all because of that Mykhailo Mudryk goal. Against Palace, he got the goal as well. And then 3-2 against Leeds. Again, another really close game. But really, the most important one is the most relevant one. We've just got to talk about the 3-2 win against Newcastle. What a goal that was, and Hazard-esque, I think. You know, he showed his quality there, and you know, I was thinking about whether Raheem would be anywhere near that, and I don't think he would. And this isn't just a Raheem thing, but you've got to think about the general impact that Misha came on and did against Newcastle, and whether Raheem should have done that from the very get-go. You know, Misha comes on, and in 19 minutes, he had as many successful take-ons in the Newcastle game than any other Chelsea player on the pitch. And more of those were successful, and he had more successful duels as well. You know, he just came on and just made an instant impact, didn't he? So yeah, it's so funny, isn't it? When you compare these two guys, they are so similar. I glaze about Mudryk, and I'm unashamed about that, to be honest with you. I just see things when I'm watching him that I just don't see from anyone else. He's the wild card option for us. And let's be honest, he hasn't really had it that easy at Chelsea so far. Poch hasn't necessarily trusted him. He's been out of the team for a considerable amount of time. And yet whenever he comes on, he is impactful for us. He does come on and make a difference. And I think he does things that other players in our squad just don't do. So overall, rounding this one up, what do we think? I'm really interested to see what you guys think. Like, do you think that Raheem Sterling has reached the end of his career at Chelsea? And would you be very happy to offload him in the summer? And do you think that Mudryk is the answer? Like, I've given my views. I've given you some data. I'm very interested to see what you guys think. For me, right, I'm looking back on this season now, and it's getting to that period of time where you can kind of review the season as a whole. And I understand why the board made the signing that they did in buying Raheem Sterling. He was available. That was the first one. Obviously, Bodie was speaking to agents, and obviously he showed his inexperience a little bit here, because what he was doing was just speaking to agents, finding people that were available and making bids. But when you look at it on paper, he was bringing in one of the best attacking players that England had at the time. He was bringing in someone that had learned under Pep, played under some unbelievable managers as well. Someone that was basically a marquee signing. When you think about it, the rest of the signings were predominantly younger players. So this guy was seen to be the sort of the difference maker, the impact player that could propel us forward and basically give Todd Bodley a bit of credibility amongst the Chelsea fans. But I think when you look at the data and you look at his performances this season, the writing is really on the wall. He hasn't made the impression that he really needed to, has he? And I think now that you're looking at him and his career, the stage that he's at, he's coming into the twilight of his career. And for me, it feels very much like he's at odds in terms of the players that we're signing. He's a very different type of player to the ones that we're really trying to build the squad around. And there were briefings this week already that we're hearing that Chelsea are basically trying to buy the best under 23 talent in every single position in the world and build that sort of squad that sort of grows and develops as a group. And Raheem Sterling is just so far separate to that now. When you look at the age and you look at sort of his skill set that he's going to do, he was known for being a really pacey winger, very explosive, 1v1 ability, but that's only going to get worse for him now. So I think it's clear for me that you do have to move on. And I think the player that I would do that around would be Mykhailo Mudryk. I wouldn't necessarily look to find another player from outside. Now, there are other options, and I think we're looking at players like Williams who could come in and make an impact. But I think he's probably more on the right-hand side as opposed to the left. And that's why I think Misha can have a very good impact for Chelsea, both from a left-hand side and potentially also from a central side, because we've seen him be very, very good there as well. But yeah, I think this isn't going to be the last time that I'm talking about how good this guy is going to be. And I do really think that he's the future of Chelsea Football Club. But yeah, get involved in the comments. Let me know if I'm being really harsh, and I'll see you in the next video.